Good evening, freaks and friends, and welcome to Math Rants. I'm your host, Math Machine, and I'm back, baby! I put in like a picture of fireworks going off or just a sound bite of someone going, yay! Right here, but I'm lazy. I was out for a little bit because I did this on my whim. I lost interest for a little bit, realized stuff got in the way. Now I got a bit more free time, so I'm back to being able to just do this whenever I like. And I noticed that I like the ranting part more than like the daily news stuff, which you get from 10 billion other places. So I'm going to be more focused on ranting, something near and dear to my cold black heart. And today, the focus of my anger will be Hollywood. Oh yes, I could go on forever. I'm going to limit myself. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna try and keep it as short as I possibly can today. So, just under 30 minutes, because I've been looking at upcoming movies and how movies are doing in general right now, and this is something that. I saw that it's pretty cool, but at the same time it's got me worried. Right now, as of the recording of this video, the top grossing movies of the year, and this is probably going to stay this way, the top three, which all have over $700 million, are, in order, X-Men Days of Future Past, Captain America 2, Spider-Man 2. All three are superhero movies. It is the genre that is winning just insanely well in Hollywood right now. I don't think anyone ever saw this coming, especially if you were in the 90s. There were a few superhero movies here and there, but I mean, oh my god, they were bad, generally. As far as anime movies went, yeah, they did great, but with live action stuff, if they ever tried that, oh, it was a train wreck. But right now, they are just good or bad. They're winning. And insanely so. But there's a slight problem with that, and I think that this is going to hold them back a little bit. All of the superhero movies that do well, mainly because these are the only ones they release, or the ones that they actually give any kind of advertising budget to, are PG-13. I'm not saying that PG-13 rating is bad, don't get me wrong. I'm saying I would like to see an R-rated superhero movie. They did that with Judge Dredd, the recent one. Well, I say recent, it was like 2011, 2012. And it was good. Nobody saw it. I think nobody saw it because they barely marketed it. Because it was an R rating, so they thought it would fail, so they didn't market it, which led to it failing. What do you know? Apparently it did really well on DVD, though. So I'm glad to hear that, because it was so successful on DVD, there have actually been talks that they would make a sequel with the same cast. I hope so, but as far as I know, it's just talks right now. And Hollywood has this weird problem where if they see something, one thing, that usually is just enough for them to look at and say, oh, okay, we're not going to do that again. Westerns, for example. That is a genre that Hollywood has considered dead for I don't know how many years. They basically refuse to make Westerns anymore. The only two Western-ish, well, three now, movies that have been made in the last while, and I use the term loosely because it wasn't more that they were Western, but just set in the Old West, was A Million Ways to Die in the Old West, the just recently released Seth MacFarlane movie, Quentin Tarantino's movie that did just the Django Unchained, or was it Django? I always forget. That did phenomenally well. I mean, just like huge profit, Oscar, everything. But then people always say, "Oh, well, it's because it's Quentin Tarantino. Everyone will just go to a Quentin Tarantino movie." And then the train wreck that was The Lone Ranger, a movie that I have said before should never have been, and still hold to this day. I don't get why it was. But especially with Lone Ranger, it was so abysmally disastrous. This was a film that, like, it sank so hard. I don't even think it made $100 million. It may have scraped that, but I mean, it was on a budget of like $200 million. It was on an insanely large budget. It failed abysmally. It failed enough that that if it was a smaller company, they would have gone bankrupt. I honestly believe that Hollywood looked at Lone Ranger and went, "Oh, okay, no one wants to see westerns anymore. We aren't going to do that anymore." That's been a problem. That it's not just the movie industry that has a problem; it's the video game industry that has that problem too. They'll just invent arbitrary reasons for not wanting to do a genre anymore. Like, "Oh, no one likes horror genre anymore. We're not going to do that anymore." Why do you say that? Well, it's what we feel. Okay, then. But Hollywood has been doing this for a lot longer. Epic films, for example, other than like a few here and there, and by epic films, I mean these 3 or 4 hour, one film, just grandiose films that were just on a large and impressive scale. I believe oddly, most of them were based on like biblical, I can't speak today, biblical stories. The Ten Commandments movie, which is still considered one of the best epic films, if not just film in general. A lot of historical pieces set in ancient Egypt, ancient Rome, those time periods. You don't see those done very much anymore. And I think it's because Hollywood has, I'm assuming at this point, I don't know about this one, but I'm assuming it's because Hollywood thinks that the average attention span, or the attention span of the average citizen is something in the ballpark of 2 hours. Because you'll notice that most movies, 1.5 to 2.5 hours, that's about the typical stretch of it. They rarely go beyond that. The only examples I can think of that recently have done that, and this was because of the source material, the Hobbit movies, Lord of the Rings movies, the Harry Potter movies, based on huge books that they had to so that they could fit in a good amount of the stuff. But otherwise, like, based on, well, it was Ten Commandments was based on Bible, so it wasn't based on original content, but more based on themes or ideas rather than from a specific book or novel. We haven't seen that done in a long time, and I do think it's because Hollywood thinks that we don't have the attention span for it, so they don't want to do it. It's the same reason you'll see like just these so many movies these days, action movies, they have for the longest time, but particularly today, they will, if it's a budget that has over $100 million, they have to save the world. That's all there is to it. Because if they're going to make it for that much, I mean, there's really nothing else they can do. You kind of expect some global saving to be done at some point. And I've noticed that Hollywood has this problem where if they don't get tons and tons of money. They refuse to make a sequel on it. Or they refuse to do anything with it anymore. Good example would have been Pacific Rim if Guillermo del Toro, and I butcher that pronunciation, last week he came out, or a couple weeks ago, he came out and said that there was going to be a Pacific Rim animated series and there was going to be a sequel to it. Woo! I honestly didn't expect that because at the box office it slightly more than broke even. On DVD though, it's been selling like gangbusters. It has, by the way, who uses that phrase anymore? Seriously. It has been selling phenomenally because it is definitely one of those word-of-mouth movies that has just become really, really popular because it was something that hasn't been done in a long time or just hasn't been done well. Yes, we all know the Japanese monster movies. They have been done to death, and we here in the States have gotten the Godzilla movies pretty recently, so we know of them and we've seen all these movies. We've never seen an American interpretation of it on the scale that Del Toro did, and it was phenomenal. I loved it, and I'm glad to see that it is actually going to be continued in that universe because it was just such an awesome world that he created. Unfortunately, in that sense, though, it's another one of his creations. Well, I say his creation. Another one of his movies, Hellboy. Hellboy 1 was a good movie. It did respectably at the box office. I don't know how it got a sequel, and I'm glad it got a sequel. Hellboy 2, once again, actually that one was a great movie. It improved on the original Hellboy in every conceivable way. It cost a little bit more. It made a little bit more at the box office, but again, not as much as it really should have. And I think that Hollywood, again, looked at that and said, it's really not too profitable. We're not going to make it. Even though the storyline kind of hinted at there being a third one, and Del Toro himself saying he wanted to conclude the movies with a third Hellboy, Hollywood all the big production studios have pretty much gone, we didn't make $500 million off of it, so no. I seem to have gone on a tangent of Hollywood production studios rather than the ratings thing, but it all ties back into the problem of Hollywood gets this really weird idea in their head that something is the cause of them not having a formulaic movie, and they can't have that. That's where I was going with the R rating thing. They don't like the idea of R ratings in superhero movies, which kind of astounds me because every one of them out right now is rated PG-13. You can't go in unless you're 13. I've been in these audiences. There are barely any kids in them. Most of them are guys like me who grew up on this stuff, who are in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s. Your core audience is well past 17. You could do an R rating. Why they don't is because they have it in their head that if they don't make it PG-13, that means they will scare off the biggest portion of their audience. I don't get that. Because this audience is an audience that are all, well, 90% adults. I will wager 90% of any audience going to any superhero movie are over the age of 18. Why they feel they have to stick to a PG-13 rating is beyond me, because it unfortunately does hold back a few things that they really could do. Deadpool movie, for example. Reynolds has been pushing hard I mean incredibly hard for a Deadpool movie, especially after the Green Lantern movie, which he said he will never do again. Ever. In his life. Not enough money in the world. He won't. Good. We thank you for that, Reynolds. He's been wanting to do a Deadpool movie, and he's been pushing hard for it. Every 6 months or so, we'll get a report that says, Deadpool movie's on, then we'll get another one that says Deadpool movie off. Deadpool movie on, Deadpool movie off. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They can't make up their bloody minds. One of the main reasons is because Reynolds has said that he won't do it unless it gets an R rating. Because it's a Deadpool movie. If you've ever read the Deadpool comics or seen Deadpool in any medium, you know it probably needs an R rating to work. Doesn't always. He was in Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon. He did phenomenally well in that. But it helps to have an R rating, especially for a live-action thing. That will give them the creative freedom to be able to work with it, as opposed to having to try and say, okay, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this. We have to keep it within this guideline. Say that you will be permitted to have an R rating. Let them do what they want to do. They might be able to work it down to a PG-13 rating just from what they do, and then they realize, oh, this actually wasn't as bad as we thought it would be. We can get away with a PG-13 rating. Hollywood doesn't think like that, because they basically make it set for a particular rating, and then the movie has to work around that rating. It doesn't work the other way around, like common sense would think. So yeah, that's probably one of the reasons for a long time, if not ever, we're not going to see a Deadpool movie. Which is a darn shame, because I would think that a Deadpool movie, considering how popular the character is right now, in this time space, at this moment, this is the perfect time to capitalize on that. But they won't. There's plenty of comic movies that they could do that would need an R rating, but they won't because of that. I've said it before in another video about the Infinity Gauntlet story arc in Marvel that they could do with Thanos. I know for a fact they won't because, and I'm not even going to bother with spoiler alert, this is a 15-year-old comic at this point. Basically every superhero in Marvel dies, and half of them are pretty damn gruesome. They wouldn't do that. They couldn't do that. Because it would have to get an R rating, and that is just something that makes Hollywood poop their pants. Here's how just insane Hollywood is right now. At one point Fox, but this was Fox, so take that as you will. At one point Fox tried to petition some form of, I don't know what avenue they went through with this. It was some sort of like movie legislation thing to get mutants not recognized as human so that they could have more violence in the X-Men movies, so that they could keep it a PG-13 rating but have more violent acts in it, because R rating requires there to be violence against humans for some stupid Hollywood reason. So Fox, while making a movie about characters who fight for recognition as equals to humans, were trying to get a petition passed to not recognize mutants as humans. If you don't see what's fucked up about that, I just don't know. I don't know where I can help you anymore. It's insane. It's just fucking insane. I don't know what is wrong with them at this point. That they won't. And original ideas are, I've said this before in another video, I'll say it again, original ideas are dead. Hollywood doesn't want to do anything original anymore. Or if they do, they keep it as low budget and market it as tinily as possible. I think this was a Warner Brothers movie at one point. I'm going to use examples from the past to the present. I think this was a Warner Brothers movie, but again, Warner Brothers has been notorious for doing this to any original IP they've had. Iron Giant. Iron Giant was a fantastic animated movie. One of the best of the year, I think. I think it came out in '99. It was probably the best of that year. But one of the best, period. It was... The way that people have joked recently is that people online have said, there's never been a really good Superman movie. And then people will say, oh yeah, Iron Giant. It wasn't a Superman movie, but it was a very good Superman unintentional allegory, analogy, metaphor, what have you. It was a really good movie. It was made by Phil Fish, who you probably recognize from Pixar, who is a creative genius. I think that was his name, Phil Fish. No, that's the video game guy. I'm just out of it today. I have been gone way too long. But be that as it may, pardon my stupidity, and this is going to be kept in because, again, I don't edit. You can see how stupid I am in real life, too. This will be up for the internet to see my level of unintelligence. But it was a really great movie, and they marketed it so poorly. I mean incredibly poorly. Because coming out the next month, and they focused all their marketing on this movie, was... I think it was... I always forget the title. I think it was Batman Forever. The one with the bat credit card and the bat nipples. The one with Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, Bane. The one that everyone, pretty much universally, agrees was complete and utter shit. Why did they do that? Because this was Batman. They thought that they should focus all of their marketing on the Batman movie because that would be the one that was good or make them money. And since then, Iron Giant has actually done really, really well on DVD. But it did so abysmally in theaters. I think it made $20 million at most. Darn shame, because it was a really good movie and should have gotten more attention than it did. But at least the director was able to go from Warner Brothers to Pixar right after that. And that was a transition that has worked out for him incredibly well. This is a guy that since has done, among other things, The Incredibles. Now there was a superhero movie. Again, Pixar, animated. You know I like animated stuff. Even if you counted it, even discounting the fact that it was animated, it was a really, really good movie. But that's just Hollywood these days. My ultimate point, and I know I've been running on even longer than I wanted because I just can't stop talking. That's how I am. My ultimate point is back to where I began, that Hollywood just needs to stop and realize that they can't keep doing this where a movie has to fit into this specific box. It can't deviate in any way. It has to follow this formula. It has to be this rating. It has to have these kind of people. It has to be for these kind of people. They can't keep doing that. I understand genres. I understand people have preferences in actors, or people have preferences in this, that, and the other. You can't make a movie that's going to appease every single person. You have to allow for some level of creativity. That's what Hollywood was. That's what Hollywood needs to go back to, because they keep narrowing that box down further and further and further. And if they keep doing that, they're just going to make the same. They're basically going to be making different variations on the same movie. I know what's different from now. Probably insert Michael Bay picture here. They need to just allow for more creative freedom, to allow for movies to develop as they were intended to, rather than putting restrictions on them to make sure they don't go outside your happy medium, best size fits all box. And if you do that, profits will probably increase exponentially. If you don't, you're going to wind up with, as has been the case, that a movie's going to fail, or a series is going to fall, or something along those lines. You're going to be scrambling to figure out what it was. You'll say, oh, well, people just don't like this anymore, and then you'll never make that genre again, and over and over and over until there's nothing left. It'll happen, unfortunately. And I'd rather it not, because I don't want to see the superhero genre in particular destroyed because Hollywood has gone batshit. This has been Math Machine, running his mouth at a rate that just won't stop, saying, peace out.